America for me was my dream, the greatest gift of my life. Like I could never imagine having the life that I live. I was having my Californian dream life. Well, I did martial arts, karate. I did Shotokan, Fudokan, and
I'm sure
Wado.
everybody would have guessed. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes,
Everybody,
I know.
yeah, of course.
I
Yeah,
look
of
like
course.
a
Martial
very
arts.
fierce person. So like I'm gonna get baptized. And he was like, don't ever talk to me about your Jesus again. You do whatever you want. And he shut his mouth. Mainly, it was because of my experience with orphans. I wanted to work with adoption. I said, like, nothing else brings me more joy than to see the smile on those children's faces. I understood that the Lord calls me to share the gospel and to be a missionary. And he specifically called me into world missions. When I was on board 10 years ago, we were from over 60 nations, representing around 350 people on board. And they just ask us, like, how come you guys live together? How come you don't have misunderstanding? It was just something different about the ship, about the people serving, and they're just curious and they want to hear, what is it?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Make Your Life Count. It is a great privilege to have another guest with us, and I'll introduce her in just a second. Make Your Life Count is the motto for Charity Cup, and so we've chosen to showcase some stories that depict people that make their life count. And we believe the way you make your life count is by investing God in people, and by people, we believe their souls, because those are the only things that last forever. So if you want to get the most out of making your life count, you should invest in God and people because they're eternal. So that's what these stories are about, and they're meant to inspire people to make their life count. I would like to invite a special guest to our podcast today, a friend who's a friend of mine, as well as a coworker in the ministry for many years, somebody that's has a background in sports, has a background in business, as well as ministry, and has an awesome family. Currently, she'll tell you a little bit more about it. She does where she's at and how things are going right now. But without any further ado, please help us welcome to the podcast, Diana Blindu, formerly known Shipos, right? Hi, Diana.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi, Danny. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, honestly, just to be in your podcast and share my life story. Even though it has been hard, it is hard for me to do it and just share my story. I know it's God's story, and I want other people to hear how God has worked in my life and how good He is and how much He loves us.
Amen. And
Um,
that's exactly what this is about. So thank you for accepting the invitation.
yes, thank
It,
you.
in a way, I think you're like the poster, could be the poster for this podcast, because I think you embody a lot of the kind of the traits that we talk about on this podcast. So like the sports aspect, which is obviously we're a little bit into sports, and you have an awesome family. You have a passion for Christ, and obviously for ministry. You have a business background, so I think it's very unique. Um, I want to say that a lot of people think, well, to make your life count, you got to be a pastor or you got to go full time into ministry. But yet, that's the point, that we think you can do it in everyday life, and I think that's what
Exactly.
we're talking. So Diana, if you would tell us a little bit of where things are at right now with you, kind of like your CV or resume of what you've done until now, what you're doing now.
Well, my life right now, we live in Florida, in Southwest Florida, Fort Myers, Naples area. I'm happily married to Danny Blindu. We have four little kids. We have Amaris Grace, who's 9, Joshua 7, Andaya Joy 5, and Josiah Daniel, he's 3 years old. And God moved us to Florida 4.5, no, like 4 years ago. Um, and we're involved in the community. We love the Romanian community over here. Um, and what we feel like the Lord called us to do, just to help build the church here. So right now we're involved in our church. Danny does the translation ministry, and then I'm involved with the children ministry, and we both of us we started leading Bible studies in our church. We do BSF. If you guys heard, it's called Bible Study Fellowship. It's an international organization that goes along churches to do these Bible studies, to help unite the church, grow in the knowledge of the word. They have all these studies ready for us. They're free of charge. It goes year long. So we start in September and in May, and we meet weekly with the group. Like I meet with the group of ladies, and then he meets with the group of men, and we stay in the word every single week. I'm a homemaker. I invest in my family. I love my children. This is the season of my life right now, to invest in them. They go to a private Christian school. It's
Wow.
a hybrid homeschool church. So they go 4 days a week, and Fridays is my homeschooling day at home with them. So it's nice that we always have the long weekend, and it's flexible. And it's a very small school, which I really love. They have small classes. They want parents to be involved. So I'm in touch with the teachers, and they also want the parents to help out. So we volunteer monthly there as well. Um, yeah, that's kind
Yeah.
of where we are right now in this season of life. And our passion is evangelism and missions. So we really try to incorporate this in our lifestyle as well, even though it's really hard to do with little kids. We always look to get involved in churches who support that and they're for missions. So our church back in California, because we were in California before Florida, we loved our church there as well because we had the same passion to reach out people for Christ. And we were involved there with the mission trips going to Mexico because we were like right there at the border in
Yeah.
Tijuana. So Danny would go, I think, twice a year there, as I would stay home with the kids. And then here, this church in Florida, we're involved in Guatemala. So we go every year or every other year. They do mission trips to Guatemala, Cuba. We've been on Logos Hope as well, both of us. So yeah, we try to do the short-term mission trips now since we're in the season of raising kids and also exposing them. We took them on Logos Hope ship last year as well. We went as a family because we wanted to see how they react to the mission field, if they like it. We believe they're called for long-term missions. We're just waiting for the right time from the Lord where we can serve full time. As of right now, the Lord confirmed that He wants us in Florida and to invest in His kingdom here in Florida right now. So this is where we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Diana, you mentioned the Bible study. I'm really curious. Is that something you guys do in home or you do at a church or what's the setting like? Just real quick. I was curious.
So it can be either or. Like usually PSF works with local churches, so the churches gives the building to use for the Bible studies. So if you have more groups, then usually they meet in church. But if you have like single groups, you can meet in people's houses. So for example, Danny's group, the men's group, they meet at somebody's house. So the men have a really nice fellowship. Usually they have like dinner together and then they start a Bible study. Us ladies, we have two different groups and we do meet at church. And we do it at church, and every 2 months we do have fellowship when we do meet at someone's house. Like all the groups meet together at someone's house and we have fellowship together.
That's really cool. Yeah, I assume is the church close to you guys? Is this like the center of what's going on around you, or is it pretty far? I'm just curious.
So the majority of the Romanians live in Naples area. So that's where the church is. We live in Fort Myers. We're like 40 minutes away from the church. So it is quite a drive. Maybe we're, I don't know, 7 families who live in this area that we drive there. Um, but it's okay. It's a
No,
sacrifice that we're willing to make to
gotcha. Okay, but
make it work. Yeah. So
it
that's
sounds like
another reason why we meet at church. And Naples is kind of like a middle location because some even live even further south. So yeah, it's
hmm
kind of like in the middle location for us.
okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So, that's cool. So a lot of things rotate around the church, which I think is kind of cool. So essentially, you're inside of a community. Sounds like what you were
Yes.
telling me earlier as well. You have a really nice community at the church. Okay, that's really cool. I picked up on that because I think that's awesome. You know, I the involvement in the Bible study and continuing that, and not just the Sunday, uh, just the Sunday activity. Very cool. Now,
Yes.
Diana, you mentioned a little bit of like your kind of current history or where things are at with you guys. You have a little bit of business background as well, and also a sports background. Could you tell us briefly about that, and then maybe we'll kind of go into the beginning of the story.
So I've always, imagined me as a mom. I'm a very active person. I can't stay still. My husband calls me like I'm an atomic bomb that sometimes just explodes. I always have these ideas, and I feel like many ideas come from God, honestly, because I do like to get involved and serve the community. And I feel like one of my gifts is just to see people's needs like around me, and it's hard for me like not to step in. I want to help everybody, but I need wisdom and discernment from the Lord to see which need I can accommodate and help, and which one not. So this is actually how the Bible study started here, because we've been doing I've been doing it for 11 years now. I started actually back in Michigan. I started doing it because you can do it um, anywhere around the world. Like it's an international, and everybody goes through the same study every year. And we started doing it in Romanian. I think we started in 2020, and it started just with the desire that the Lord put on my heart and my friends' heart from Michigan to bring the study into the Romanian community. I feel like the Romanian community would really benefit of this amazing study. Like the notes are just amazing, and it can be even you can go as deep as you want. It can be very good for even like seekers, new believers, but also if you want to go deeper in your belief and knowledge of the word. So um, we started doing it in Romanian like 6 years ago. And since then, it's just developed. We've been doing it on Zoom because of COVID. And because it brings unity, we wanted to bring in our church as well, because many of us moved to Florida in the last 4 or 5 years. So many of us were new in the church. I thought that it would give us a great opportunity to have deeper discussions and get to know each other better, share our personal experiences with the Lord. So this is like from the spiritual aspect, but I also always envision myself to contribute financially to the family. I know I'm not gonna be a career, necessarily like a career woman, because I wanted to be present with my kids. So last year, the Lord put on my heart to start a business, a tallow skincare business, and it just started with I saw one of my neighbors. She had just like a beautiful face, like glowing face, and I asked her like, what products do you use? So she introduced me to tallow, and initially I just bought like Amazon brand tallow, and I liked it because I didn't know anything better than that. But then I started like researching it, and I was thinking like how hard it is to actually do it yourself. So it is way harder than I thought initially because I didn't know anything about tallow. So then I started like researching and looking into it. And the blessing is that here in Florida, we're surrounded by farms. So we have like in Southwest Florida. Okay. So
Wow.
Southwest Florida is very different than East Coast Florida, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a very island feel. We still have like a lot of vegetations, a lot of farms. So I started looking into farms. And I learned the difference between beef sweat and trim fat. They're very different. So sweat is the more uh, cleaner side of the fat, of the beef fat is the fat around the organs. So it's cleaner, it's less contaminated by the muscle and blood. It's firmer, um, it's richer in fatty acids. It's more absorbent. It doesn't smell. It's more stable. It's way more expensive, and it's very hard. It's harder to find because what farmers do usually they just and butchers actually it's easier for them just to mix it all around. It's easier for them, but it's harder to separate the trim fat from the actual beef sweat. So it has been a challenge to find the beef sweat, but I'm getting there. I'm getting like more and more. I started to work with more farmers to get the beef sweat. So I started to develop my own like skincare products, face balms. I kind of tested to see what are good oils to mix them with. So I developed my own recipe to be more nutritious, to mix with essential oils. So all of them, they're pure organic, natural. And initially I started to do it for myself, and then I started like to gift it to my friends, and everybody loved it. And that's why they encouraged me, like, why don't you start a business? Because the products are so good. Um, and then from them, I got ideas like, how about you do a deodorant? I would love to try a deodorant. So the deodorant started. Somebody said, like, oh, I would like to use a chapstick. I started doing a chapstick. Another one, sugar scrubs.
Really?
So I started doing sugar scrubs. So the products are still developing, and it's hard to keep up with everything. But it has been going very well. I have the company's name is called Pure Eden Co. So I have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. I'm still working on getting into an Etsy store. That's my next step. But I'm a little bit in the busy season right now with my little one. So slowly but surely, we're gonna get there.
So it's called, um, say the name again, and people want to check it out.
Pure Pure Eden Co. Pure Eden Co.
Okay.
So I was looking for a name that can reflect the biblical, like how Eden was, like
Was
how
pure.
Eden restored, basically, how we
Yeah.
go back to our beginnings, how God intended to be, how nature was when it was not corrupted by sin.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really cool. I'll tell you my interaction with beef talk because I had no idea what this was. We went to the Amish country here in Ohio, and my wife is like, "I gotta buy this." We went to this store where they had a lot of Amish products. So she's like,
Uh-huh.
"I gotta buy. This is a great price for beef tallow." And I don't know. It was like a bomb. So I was
Hmm.
thinking in my head, what's the Amish got to do with, like, skincare? I didn't know what it was made of. I didn't know. So I'm like, what's that got to do with Amish people? Now you haven't explained it to me, and probably my wife explained that it's made from this pure, fat or whatever. So now I
Hmm.
get the idea. But anyway, I think that's really cool, Diana. Again, it doesn't surprise me at all. I think you're always like an extra achiever. So I'm not surprised you're balancing all these things. Would you say some of that is grounded in like how there's one more piece of the thing I wanted to ask you, and you maybe mention it to the audience. Do you have a sports background? Do you think some of that discipline that it took to do what you did back then, like now sports into your regular life?
So definitely being an athlete for the longest time of my life. Yeah, it definitely helped me with discipline and being strong willed and not giving up and maybe look for like achievement. And it's hard in sports. It's tough. Like many times you want to give up when you have practices every single day of the week, except on Sundays you're tired of it. Like you're done. You don't want to do this anymore, but still like you keep pushing yourself. It's a mental strength that you develop, not just like physical but mental. It just helps you, like, no matter, I think it really helped me, like, no matter what I faced in life, to keep going forward. Don't rely on my feelings, like what I feel right now. Like I feel like, I'm done, I don't want to do it anymore. Like I don't go based on feelings, like I go based on truth and what I know it's important for me. And also to keep my word. If I said, especially if I said to my trainer that I'm gonna commit for a full year, even though I change my mind throughout that year, I'm not gonna back out. I'm gonna keep my promise. So I feel, again, this translates in everything in our life. And I keep my promise, and I want to be known as a person that you can rely on. If Diana said that at 10 a.m. she's going to be there to help you, she's going to be there. She's going to show up no matter what, no matter if my kids slept that night or not, or if something happened. Like, obviously, emergencies happen, and I understand, but not for poor reasons, just because I don't feel good, you know?
Can you fill us in on what the sport is and maybe to what level did you get to? Or I know you probably don't want to, you're like, I don't want to show off, but I will if you don't say it, if you would.
Well, I did martial arts, karate. I did Shotokan, Fudokan, and
I'm sure
Wado.
everybody would have guessed. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, I
Everybody,
know.
yeah, of course,
I
yeah,
look
of
like
course,
a
martial
very
arts.
fierce person.
Of course, no one, yeah, of course. That's the first thing. No, sorry, I interrupted you. So martial arts, please continue.
Yes, and martial arts is not how people think. It's not just about fighting. It also has like the artistic side, and I think I was very good at that one. The artistic is called kata. So kumite is sparring where you fight, and kata um, is the artistic side where you fight with an imaginary person, right? But that kata needs to be perfect, like every hit, every kick, every movement, how your kimono sounds when you punch, it needs to be perfect. So it's a lot of practice to do that. The positions are very low, like you require a lot of strength, mobility, stability. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's hard. And the conditioning part, it's intense. You work a lot. So I never liked the comedic part, the sparring. I once I think when I got to 17, 18, it was not mandatory for me anymore. Until then, they would made me compete, like you have to. I never enjoyed it. But kata I did. So after 18, I did compete only doing kata. And I think my biggest level, I think I won. It was an European championship, and I won second place there. That was like my biggest achievement, let's say. I also did table tennis. So it's funny how it was never like a choice. I remember I was in school, and the trainer came to recognize athletes or people who they would be good for table tennis. And because I was doing martial arts already, obviously he selected me because I was more athletic than my other ones. So that's how I started table tennis. It was free of charge because it was like a club sportive. And this was everything back in Romania, by the way. Sorry, I forgot
yeah,
to mention.
yeah,
All this is back in Romania. And because we didn't have to pay for anything, everything was paid for, our trips, our competitions, everything, that really pushed me to continue to do it. My parents loved it because they didn't have to pay.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up doing table tennis. And again, since I committed, even though I didn't feel like I want to do it anymore, I continued. And it's so funny because my mom, she raised me up telling me that do as many as you can in life, take as many opportunities and learn more things, because you never know how they're gonna help you in life later on. You never know. So I remember that, and I remember being in like back then I was thinking like table tennis, mom, seriously, like what's gonna help me? And I started later. I started at 11. 11, it was late to end up somewhere like high. You start 5, 6, if you wanna be like a really good athlete. So I started late. I was like, mom, I don't think it's gonna help me. But I remember being in Chicago and we were doing fundraising for Charity Cup. And,
Yeah.
then we said, like, how about we do table tennis tournaments to fundraise for mission trips in Moldova?
Yeah.
So that's when I really started to use, because people are not, especially like Romanian men, they they can't believe that a Romanian girl can play very good table tennis. So they would be very challenged and they would sign up for the competitions just to come to play against me and try to beat me. But like that, we would raise funds for
Yeah.
Moldova. So there we are. Like it did help me later on in time to,
I remember.
yeah,
So
use
in
that
table
way.
tennis, to what level did you get? Because he wasn't just amateur, right?
Uh, no, it was not amateur. I would train every single day. So I train every single day for 4.5 years or 3.5 years. I don't remember. But I never got like uh, high up, like a medal, like at the national competition. I didn't get too high there because I started late.
But in your region, would you say you were in the top or regionally in your city?
Together with my team, yes. By myself, not necessarily. When we did like the team competitions, yes, we were Târgu Mureș. I was born and raised in Târgu Mureș, because Târgu Mureș was one of the best team nationally. Like actually, the national champion was from my city.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, you played at a professional level, right? So
Yes.
I wanna dive into that. But I wanted to just ask you real quick about so the martial arts is called so I got the kata, but that's just a style, right? But what was is it Hakido, or can you say that again?
Uh, Shotokan, Fudokan is like the
Okay.
main style. Shotokan, Fudokan, that's what I did. And then in my last years, I transitioned to Vado Ryu. Vado Ryu is very similar to Shotokan, Fudokan, but just the positions are a little bit higher because I started having knee problems. For Shotokan, the positions are very low. So it put like a lot of pressure on my knees. So I had to switch a little bit to adjust to my body and to my
So
needs.
Diana, for the context of our audience, I assume this is a fighting style like karate and taekwondo. I assume this is a specific, right? It's not a
Taekwondo is just a different style of martial art.
martial arts. Okay. What
Yeah.
country does this come from? Like this particular style?
My style comes from Japan.
So it's Japan. Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's
come,
Japan. And actually, when I moved to Chicago, I got to train with the sensei, like our teacher, we call them sensei, with an old Japanese sensei from Japan. So that
wow.
was a great honor for me.
Yeah. Okay. So Kung Fu is from China, right? That's a different style. But anyway, okay. So just trying to kind of make sense of it because I think the people
Yeah, they
this
all
is
come
new
different countries from Asia, because
from Asia.
Koreans actually they're big into it. Actually, it's so funny when I went in Korea, you would see in Korea you see even like the elderly they're out in the park doing, I think, like Tai Chi or something, like the more like relaxed form of martial arts. Like they're very active. They do martial arts in the park. It's just ingrained in their culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I learned a little bit about Tai Chi. It's actually very healthy for you and all that.
Mhm.
But so the level you represented Romania, it was a national, right? You represented a country, Romania, essentially at the European
Yes,
competition. Okay.
yes,
Were there medals or how? What was the award?
yes. Medals and monetary prizes as well. Yeah,
Yeah. So basically, it was a professional at a professional level. Where
yes,
like what was the amount of competitors? Was it hundreds? I'm not sure how that works.
yes, yes. There were hundreds. Yeah.
So basically, out of Romania, you got selected from a pool of people that does this to go and represent your country.
Well, back in so I finished my university studies in Cluj. So in Cluj, that's where the national Romanian team. I think they still train there in Cluj. So I got to train with them with the national Romanian team
Hmm. And so you
in
got you.
Cluj.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So essentially, I mean, you got to the peak of the sport. I mean, what would have been the next step? Your world champions, I assume, would have been going to that. Did you?
Well, honestly, so what happened? I started very early martial arts. I was very good. But for martial arts, you had to pay. So I started doing external competitions, but everything was very expensive. And I saw the burden that it put on my parents. This was back in Târgu Mureș. And I was also doing, so I was doing two sports at the same time, table tennis and martial arts. And I was going to my eighth grade. And if, I don't know if you know, like in Romania, at eighth grade, that's like a big exam that you really need to study. And that grade matters for high school, when you
Yeah.
go into high school. So kind of my parents made me pick between those two sports. They said like it's too much to do both of them and then prepare for this big exam. So even though I was better at karate and I had higher chances of getting, high up on the podium, because of the burden that it put on them, I chose table tennis to stick with table tennis, and I took a break from karate. So because of money, for 3.5 years until I got to Cluj for my university, and then I started like training again. So I had to catch up. So I took a 3.5 years break that really pushed me way behind in line, um, because of that break.
So you almost had to reprove yourself in
Exactly.
martial arts. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it was that at that point you went to European
Yes,
champion.
yes.
So
After
even
that,
after the break, you still got to that level where you were able to compete. Did
yes.
Was there a world division, if you would, like after Europeans? Would I assume there's a world?
Yes, so actually we had world champions. We had world champions in our team. We did. Uh, so yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I
Anyway,
trained with really with ones of the best. I had ones of the best trainers, and I learned a lot from them. Even like copying, I feel like I'm very good at copying. Like when I see a movement, like to reproduce. So I learned a lot just from copying from others
it's
as
like
well.
photographic memory, I assume.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yes.
Either
Yeah, it
way, I
needs a
mean,
lot of training. Yeah, it's
yeah.
just perseverance. You just persevere, you keep going until you master every movement.
So I feel like you're downplaying like the level where you got to. I mean, to be compete at a European level, and I mean that's representing your country. That's very few people that you'll run into that they can say that, especially in this kind of discipline like martial arts. So congratulations, by the way. I don't know if
Thank
you. I thought it was really cool when I remember hearing the story because you weren't really that forthcoming with, you had to cry and pry. Come on, Diana, tell us. So I'm sure a lot of people are
Yes,
dying
I
to
don't want
hear.
to show off, that's for sure. I remember you always like telling me, come on, do a kata, do some movements, show us. Yes, I'm not that person that likes to show. Even my husband, like come, like do something for me, show me. I don't know why I I don't like it for some reason. I'm not the show
Yeah,
off. Sorry.
right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of people that are very talented, they don't need to show off. I mean, they just know what they're good at, and that confidence is there, and they don't need to have anybody approve. And I think that's maybe part of it. But and we talked about it as we were reminiscing right before we started recording. This has got a little bit somehow incorporated into your wedding, right? And hopefully we can show that to the audience. But um, I want to go, like I said, I want to go a little bit further in your background, but just real quick as a preview, in your wedding, right? Somebody insisted that you do some photos of you round kicking the, I don't know if that's the right term, round kicking the bouquet. So,
Hmm. Yes. Can you
and
mention who that person was?
I don't know, maybe there were, yes, I was involved in that, but
Yes.
but I remember we had to come on, Dan, you got to do this, and I'm glad we did, because I think hopefully that's a great memory for you guys. So,
Yes, it is an amazing memory. Yes, and I remember you mentioning like you can be like a karateka and don't have like a kick in your wedding, So you really encouraged us to have this memorable, um, yeah, picture shot, and the photographer captured it like so beautifully. So it's one of our most memorable pictures, actually, and more unique, I would say, from our wedding. And I feel like you always encourage people like around you to go at their like best potential. Like you see so much further. Like I feel even like with me, you always like encourage me to dream higher, to believe, that things are possible, if you really put your mind and work to it. You're definitely like an encourager, a visionary, a
oh,
dreamer but a dreamer that makes things happen. You don't just like dream.
praise God. I appreciate that. Thank you. But again, you guys were Donnie was all for it. Like, yeah, Diana, you got to do this.
Yes.
So that, it wouldn't have happened otherwise. Diana, since we're on this topic of martial arts, I'm really curious. Maybe I asked you this throughout the years, but that is, have you ever had to use martial arts in a real scenario where somebody, I don't know, you had to get yourself out of a situation, or like basically, did you have to beat anybody up?
Actually, no, because I
No.
know my limits. I'm a woman, so I can, with all my martial arts skills, I'm no match to a man, you know?
Hmm.
So if somebody would ask me, like, oh, what do you do if somebody attacks you? I would always say, like, your first thing, you run. You run as fast as you can. You scream for help. And then if they catch you, then, it's your opportunity to kick, bite, whatever. Um, so yeah, I never had to use it. Praise the Lord. I feel I was always protected by the Lord because I've been in very dangerous situations.
Uh-huh.
But it also gave me like a calm, I would say. I was never afraid, um, because I do know how to kick and to punch correctly, even though I'm petite. I do know how to use all my whole body weight. When I do
Yeah.
have a strong kick. Um, so maybe that may be like more confident. Like I remember when I was young and we would go to clubs. Probably we're gonna talk later about like my testimony and how I give my life to the Lord. But before that, we would go to clubs. I remember my cousin would always get into fights with other guys. So I was not afraid like to go and break the fights because they would not, hit a girl. So I was not afraid of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, probably you were thinking, well, if it does happen, well, might be, I don't know what to do in some ways. I tell my son, my son is like, he likes to wrestle, blah, blah, blah. And I told him, I'd love for you to get into this, but not because you should fight, because I think the first, I did took a few classes of martial arts, and it was interesting because they're highlighting the fact that you shouldn't be fighting. You should like run away only in certain scenarios where there's no other choice. So I thought that was interesting coming from from the guru himself saying, yes, it's a great thing to learn, but you don't, yeah, anyway.
People don't realize it that it's more peaceful. actually sport. I would not have imagined like that, but actually, they try to teach you to be calm, not to respond in anger, not to hit, like to it's a protective, it's a self defense
Yeah.
sport. It's not for defense. It's a self defense. It's not to attack or to hurt other people. Actually, it's to protect yourself and protect others.
Yeah. Very cool. So Diana, tell us kind of your background, maybe where things start. I know you said you're from Turgumuresh. Maybe if you want to take us back there.
Yeah, so I was like born and raised in Turgumureș, which I really love. It's a sweet town,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
friendly in Romania. Um, so I had like a good childhood, but I didn't realize that something was missing from my life until at the age of 15. At 15, I was invited to um, a summer camp with orphans. I was asked, there were some American missionaries. By the way, back then I didn't know the term like Christian camps, missionaries, gospel, like nothing. I've never heard of the gospel. I've never heard about Jesus, besides like from the Orthodox Church. So I grew
Didn't
up in an Orthodox family, but
okay.
nominal. Like we would go to church only for Easter and Christmas with my grandparents. My dad never went to church. He was like more of an atheist. Um, and then at 15, there were some American missionaries who came to Romania to work with the orphans. That's They would always take translators from the church. Obviously they wanted Christian translators to translate and be leaders for the orphans, but that summer, it was the summer of 2000, they have a lot of Americans who came to Turku Mureș, and to keep up with them, for them it was more important for the Americans to be able to communicate with the children than to make sure that everybody's a believer. So then they extended the invitation to anybody else who speaks English and wants to. In my head was like wants to play with the orphans, and
Yeah.
I've always loved children. And my aunt, actually, she was a special needs teacher at an orphanage back in Târgu. So I kind of like grew up with the orphans, knowing about them or visiting the orphanage. So I decided to go to this summer camp. But I remember once I entered the camp, I felt like something was very different with the people there. As I said, I've never met like real Christians before,
Yeah.
and they were just like so loving. I felt so loved by them, and I was like, how can these people love me? They don't even know me. I felt like more loved by them than in my own family, and they were just like so happy. You could tell like the joy
Mm.
on their faces. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know what these people have, but what they have, I wanted to. I want to be just like them. So remember, they were not there to share the gospel with us. They were there to share the gospel with the children. So I was translating. And while
So
translating to the orphans,
you were speaking English at that point? You had learned
yes,
English.
yes,
Okay,
I
that's
learned
awesome.
from
I didn't know.
TV. I mean, yes.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know that. I thought, okay, awesome.
It was not as good as it is right now, but yeah, I could speak, and I think I had 2 years in school of English by then. Yeah, I think 2 years, which is not much. I basically learned by watching movies, honestly, and having in Romania, we have the Romanian subtitles. That's how I learned English. That's how I learned Spanish, Italian. Maybe I'm more prone, maybe, learning different
Yeah.
languages.
So you mentioned these other languages, English, Italian, and Spanish, and you actually speak those? Like, that's pretty cool.
So, because I learned them from TV, I understand them perfectly. But when I do have to speak it, I do mix like Spanish and English words. But I would say if I would move, let's say to a Spanish speaking country or Italian, I think it would be in a few months. I think I could be fluent because I know all the words, I understand them, but it's just I think you use a different part of the brain when you speak the language.
Wow.
it's so funny because my husband, Danny, he studies Spanish in school. So he's very good at speaking it, but he's not good at understanding. So when we go to Spanish speaking countries, I translate for him because I understand what the person says and he speaks because he's better at speaking than me. So we're a very good combo together.
That's interesting. That's interesting because we have Lydia and I have a similar. She speaks Spanish, and I can speak it a little bit, but I don't understand it. They speak too fast. So anyway, so Diana, so basically you got invited to this camp as a translator, which
Yes.
I didn't. Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know that. Just as a small parenthesis, I want to know, did you ever learn Japanese, or because of the sport you're involved in?
Well, the terms that we use are in Japanese, so we would always count in Japanese. So since we were little, even though we didn't understand what we were saying, we would always count in Japanese. Or there's all the names of the punchies or roundhouses, how you call them, we use Japanese terms for them. We don't use the American, even like kata, kumite, that's Japanese terms that
Very
I
cool.
I mentioned. When I was in Japan, I did learn a little bit in every country. We're gonna get there, but like while we served in Asia, like from every country, I feel like we learn a little bit from like that language as well.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you got invited to this camp as a translator into
Yes.
Dolores. Yep.
So while I was translating for the kids, when the missionaries were sharing the gospel, that's when I realized that who made a difference in their lives was Jesus Christ. So when they asked the orphans to accept Jesus in their lives, I accepted him as well as my Lord and Savior. So this was at the age of 15. I was 15 years old. So that's when the transformation started for me. um it's interesting because when they say that when you give your life to the Lord, some things change instantly and some like take more time. So for me, what happened instantly, it's very interesting. I used to swear a lot just growing up in the neighborhood in Cartier, Romania.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just part of how I would speak, just to be cool, I guess.
Yeah.
But I remember after that moment, never in my life up to this day, never another bad word exited my mouth. And I didn't try, it was not old, like right now I don't need to swear anymore because I'm a Christian. After a few weeks, I just realized like, wow, I never said another swear. So that's something that happened instantly when I accepted the Lord. um, but then it was a process of slowly growing. I continued to volunteer with this organization. It's called Loc Livada Orphan Care, that they still work in Târgu Mureș with the orphans there. I continued to volunteer for the next 4 years, I think. Those were definite years for my life, like to change and to grow in Christ, because the whole summers we would be volunteers over the summer to work with the kids starting June till end of August. So for 3 months, we were there serving with the kids, even though back then we didn't even know like that was missions. We were like serving the Lord. We just do it out of love for children. And it's interesting because then I invited more friends. Everybody invited their friends. And the organization started to realize that the translators are coming to Christ. And now they're very purposeful when they invite translators to invite non-believers. So I was the
Unbelievable.
first generation. Then this change starting to happen. So now they have double ministry to work with the translators for them to hear the gospel, and then for the children.
That is so interesting because yeah, I think that's so cool. You know, there's the word in Romanian you can say cineva aude, altul crește. It's a Bible verse. Somebody waters and then somebody else
Yeah.
grows. These guys help plant the seed in your life through the translating, and then probably you grew in many other ways after that. But it's interesting that, and then also just going back thinking, wow, how many translators we used through the years. Not all of them were Christian, and that, like you said, the purpose was sort of to be able to relay the message to the children, but really it was filtering through the translator. That's really interesting. So we'll
Yes,
keep that in mind as we do a lot, work right now in Africa. We use translators a lot. So
mhm.
interesting. Okay. Yeah.
So maybe
Really
don't
cool.
focus so much in being believers themselves, because all they need to do is just relate your message.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
God's ways are so much higher than ours, and He works in mysterious ways that you could never imagine. I feel that's why it's so important just to do His will, like do what He asks you to do. And sometimes He creates a need, right? Like that summer, He sent too many missionaries, American missionaries to Romania because He had in mind this for us to come to know Him. Um, so yeah, it's just to yeah, I've learned a lot throughout
Hmm.
my spiritual journey just to listen to God and walk by faith, even though things don't seem rational necessarily. It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. So it's hard. Just trust Him. He has a plan. If you're obedient and you really love Him and you want to do His will, He knows what He's doing. Just trust Him. You'll understand later how I understood later so many other things.
Yeah. So Diana, your initial invitation was sort of you didn't know was your aim to just sort of fulfill a job being translator, or was it like, hey, I really want to help these kids? I wouldn't, maybe you didn't call it serving, you don't know the term, but what was the pull to get involved with that initial ministry?
Yeah, it was to work with the kids. As I said, I knew about the orphans in Târgu because of my aunt. So yeah, I wanted to
See,
go,
be part of it.
play with them. Yes, and also like back then, it was something really cool to meet other Americans. Like Americans, remember the borders open up starting like 90, right? When all of a sudden all these orphans came out
Yeah,
and everybody knew about the orphans in Romania. So
yeah,
since then, a lot of help and ajutoare, right?
yeah,
A lot of donations came to the orphans. I remember my aunt receiving a lot of donations for the orphans, and sometimes she would bring stuff for us too because we didn't have either, like
yeah,
we didn't
yeah,
have boys' clothes or stuff like that. So
yeah,
she would bring some stuff for us. So it was this import of missionaries back in the 90s. So this was the year of 2000. So it was interesting. I wanted to meet other people, practice my English. Everything was free of charge again, so that was in a
yeah,
beautiful place. It was somewhere like in the mountains, like a camp in the mountains. I was like, okay, why not? And very interesting because I was an athlete. We had to train over the summer. That was the first summer that we had off for some reason. Again, God just
yeah.
made it in such a way for me to be available actually to join that camp.
Yeah, that is, yeah, his ways are amazing, and yeah, that's awesome. So you went to this camp. I assume during the camp you actually sort of accepted Christ in your life, as you said, and then you kind of went back. I'm curious, what did your family think? What did your family think of that, or how did that
Uh, so
news come?
because because my parents were not like very orthodox. I feel like it's harder when your parents are orthodox and go to church and all that. So they were not too strict about me. They were fine with me accepting Christ. I remember my mom, as long as you're happy.
Oh, okay.
So yes, then I started going to church, in Târgu Mureș, and I remember inviting my mom, but she didn't want to come because that was the mentality back in Romania about pocăiți. They're
Yeah,
a sect, and I remember one time. she asked me just to make sure that I go in a safe place. It's like, did you see any blood? Do they make you drink blood? So she heard all that those
Yeah.
stories that okay,
Yeah.
they drink blood and they turn off the
Yeah.
lights and who knows what
Yeah.
happens there. But I assured her, no, it's fine. It's a beautiful place. I always invited her with me, but she didn't want to come. It got more serious when, so actually, long story short, I decided to come after I got my bachelor's. I got my bachelor in social work in Cluj, at Babeș Bolyai, and it was because of the orphans, of my experience with orphans. Um, I wanted to continue to work with them, to work with adoption. That was my field that I wanted to go. I said, like, nothing else brings me more joy than to see the smile on those children's faces. They just wanted a hug, somebody to listen to them. When you listen to their story, it's like there's no person that cannot be touched by them. I would say most of them, if not all of them, are abused. They go through different abuses, physical, verbal, sexual, even sexual, the majority. So they carry a lot of hurt. And I feel like this organization being involved, like, changed so many lives on the trajectory of this orphan. So that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
to work with them and help them and find homes and families. But then after I got my bachelor's, I came to the United States. Uh, so here, I feel like in Romania, I was like juggling because I was like a good person. So I would go to church, but I didn't see anything bad in like going to a club and just dance, because I love dancing and partying, but not necessarily get drunk and, do bad stuff. But I
Yeah.
like to dance. And it was hard just to break out. I mean, my family were not believers, my friends were not believers. Um, so I didn't just rip myself from them. And when I came to the US, I feel like the Lord gave me a new chance of life, because I remember I always complained, like, Lord, like, why didn't you put me like in a Christian family to know the truth from the start, like not to suffer. Just, I'm a very rule obeying person. I stick by the truth. If I know this is right, I'm gonna stick to it, like, no matter what. So it's like, I think I would have followed you, if I would have known the truth and all that. But I still had to go through hurts. It was not the best case scenario in my family. So um why didn't I have Christian parents and stuff like that? So when I moved to the US, I felt like the Lord gave me a new opportunity, a new chance. And he said, like, Diana, now you're here. You can start afresh. You can start new. You choose. Do you want to go in the world, or do you choose me? So obviously I chose Christ. So this was like back in Chicago. I decided to go to church every Sunday, have only Christian friends. I That's when I kind of like separated myself from the world, and that's when the Lord really started to work in my heart. I remember the first Christian book that I read is um, Purpose Driven Life by Rick
Yeah.
Warren, Viața condusă de
Rick
scopuri.
Warren.
That really challenged me and helped me understand, okay, Lord, you saved me, you created me in your image. What's the purpose of my life? Like, how do you want me to use my life? And that's when, like, the Lord kind of reminded me, like, how I came to know him. I came to know him through missionaries. Like, if they would not come to Romania, maybe I would not have, probably the Lord
Yeah.
found like another way, right? But he chose the missionaries to reach my heart. And I understood that that's what the Lord calls me. He calls me
Yeah.
to share the gospel and to be a missionary. And he specifically called me into world missions, because I feel every believer should be a missionary. Wherever God has placed you,
Yeah.
you do have to be a light for him. And we're talking about make your life count. I feel like you just have to live out your calling. That's how you make your life count. Every individual
Yep.
is unique. The Lord has different plans for everybody. All you have to do is just listen to Him and live out His purpose in your life. That's how you make your life
Yeah.
count. So I understood my calling. My calling was world missions. Um, it took
Yep.
me 2 years to kind of say yes to him, because here, like in the US, I ended up overstaying my visa. So that meant once I left the country, I was not able to come back home. So the Lord
Yep.
really had to confirm over and over again. And, part of that time of my life, and especially my
Yep.
friends being kind of like against it. Um, saying that, I don't think the Lord calls you. Like, this
To
is your
go.
dream. Like, just wait. It's gonna be fine here. You're gonna get papers here. Don't leave. I had some other friends who encouraged me. So it's just really, really,
Yeah.
yeah. I had these
Now,
different
I want to.
encouragements.
So Diana, I feel like we're entering sort of a different phase of the story
Yes.
here, but I want to go
Yes.
back a little bit to one point that you brought up, which I want to just explain to the audience. You mentioned
Yes.
that there was this like preconception about really about Protestants in Romania. And I
Hmm.
just want to explain that to the audience. In Romania, the predominant religion is Orthodox, which obviously we believe they're Christians, but a lot of times it just becomes a ritualistic type of religion where you're just going through the motions and there's not really a personal relationship with Christ. And we're making the distinction. And the communists had pushed this idea because they didn't want people to sort of go into the Protestant religion, if you would, because anyway, for many different reasons, it was they were pushing these crazy rumors that the Protestants, like evangelicals, were when you go to their churches, crazy things would happen, like the lights would shut off, and there'd be all kinds of like very sadistic things happening. Also, that they would inject you with something. I remember, the same idea, which is absolutely
Brainwash you. They would
false.
brainwash you, change how you think.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but besides even just mentally, they were talking like physically things were happening. So they're trying to scare
Yes.
people from going and checking out uh, the churches that, none of that was absolutely not true. But that's how they were trying to scare people. So some people did believe this because I remember the rumor that you mentioned about the lights coming off and then, they would do all kinds of crazy things and then inject you with some syringe. Like those are things that were floating in Romania. It was the reality. It wasn't like just one, since you heard in Târgu Mureș, I was in Arad and I heard it there. Obviously, it was a predominant story. So that's what they
Hmm.
were trying to do. So that's what I could see how, when you came to Christ and started going to the sort of Protestant church and evangelical churches, there's this crazy rumors going around. So I want the audience to understand what that was about.
Hmm.
Um, at the same time, um, I have a lot of relatives that are also from an Orthodox background, which again, I think the problem there is there's not really a personal relationship with Christ, which we believe is really important. The the
Yes.
the main the main thing that should be if you're going to be a Christian. So, just wanted to touch up on that because people are like, "What? What did she say about?" I didn't want them to leave without understanding what that was about. So, Diana,
Yeah.
so you arrived to the States, kind of like you said, that there was like a whole new chapter in your life in the
Yes.
States. I think that's when we met. You
Yes.
obviously landed in in a lot of Christian circles, like at every turn, right? That you sort of, yeah. I don't know how you got to the States, but um,
So I
you
came with
landed
the work and
from the
travel. I
beginning.
came with the work and travel
Oh,
visa. That's how
okay.
I got. Initially, I got the job in Arizona. Actually, I came 2 years in a row in
Oh,
the US. I worked
okay.
at the resort in Arizona. After that, and after my visa expired, so the second time when I came with the idea, because got my bachelor's already. So I came with the idea already to change my visa into a tourist visa from work and travel. So I feel here again is the divine intervention. I mean, God intervened here,
Intervention.
intervention, because I never wanted to as I said, I'm by the law, by the rule. I never wanted to overstay my visa. So uh, I applied for my tourist visa, and while I was waiting, I didn't get an answer from immigration. And at one point, like I called them after like 2 or 3 months, hey, like what's going on? And they were like, oh, we sent you a letter with the answer in mail. Like, didn't you get it? I was like, no, I didn't get anything. Can you please no, they said like if you're not gonna get it, give us a phone call and we're gonna tell you the answer by phone. I wait another week. Obviously, I didn't get anything, so I called them and they said, "Well, you were denied for the visa. You have to go back home." And then I asked them, "Okay, can you please resend me the letter? Because if I go back home, like Romanians are very strict. Like they're not gonna believe me that I tried to do all this like legal stuff. Like I need a proof that I didn't try to overstay my visa." So I give them my address again. Second time, I don't get any letter from immigration, like nothing. And then I started praying, like, Lord, like, what do you want me to do? Because I don't want to overstay, you know. Uh, but at the same time, I go back to Romania, I graduated my college. Uh, I have to look for a job. I finished 1 year early than my friends. I did 2 years in one. So all my friends were still in college. So I was kind of like by myself. And I always pray like, Lord, show me such a way. I want you to take the decision for me. I don't want to take it myself. So for me, not getting the second letter from immigration, for me, that was a sign from the Lord that he wants me to stay and he has a purpose. And now looking back, it was the greatest blessing for me because all he kind of had to rip me away from my life in Romania and to start new uh, back in the US. And that's where I got baptized. And that's what I wanted to mention. My parents were okay until I was just going to church. But when I decided to get baptized, basically to
Mm.
change my religion, they were not so okay with it, especially my dad. So I remember like sharing my decision with him on the phone. I was like, I'm gonna get baptized. And he was like, don't ever talk to me about your Jesus again. You do whatever you want. And he shut his phone. She shut the phone. Um, that was it. Like I still got baptized and all that. But the Lord, in His goodness, just to forward tell you a little bit like for what happened with my parents. My mom gave her life to the Lord, so she's a believer. My dad, he's right there at the door. So he's very open, like he prays with us, he listens. He says that he believes in God. Okay, I mentioned he was like an atheist, he didn't believe in anything. So now he believes that there's a God. He just needs to accept him as his personal Lord and Savior. But yeah, the Lord, he's so good. He doesn't make mistakes. And he really taught me how to depend on him. And the reason why I was in Chicago because some of the leaders that I met in the camp, I told you with the orphans. So some
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
Romanian leaders they immigrated to the U.S. So they lived in Chicago. So they said that I could come and stay with them until I find some accommodation. So that's how I got integrated into the evangelic community, Romanian community, Baptist community in Chicago first.
I was gonna ask you, how did you end up in Chicago? Just real
Mhm.
quick about your dad, I wanted to mention. Is he with you guys now in the States or is he in Romania right now?
He's in the States. We applied for green cards for them. They
Okay.
came 3 years ago. So now they spend 6 to 8 months out of the year. They stay with us. And during the summer, they go back home to Romania.
Yeah. So I was gonna mention, if he's there with you guys, there's this really interesting documentary that just came out about the Shroud of Turin. I don't know if you've seen it. This guy's
Mhm.
doing his rounds podcasts, and he's basically saying that shroud, I don't know if you're familiar with it, really proves without a doubt that Jesus existed, he died, and something miraculous happened, because they cannot explain the layers of how the image of Christ got embedded on that shroud. Anyway, I think you should have your dad watch it. I think you guys should watch it because it's super interesting. I watched it with my wife, and it's almost like palpable truth that Jesus existed, died, and resurrected. Like there's
Mhm.
no, it's scientifically like, anyway, you should have your dad watch it. Maybe that's something that might be interesting to him. It's going around right now. If you do a search on Shroud of Turin, it'll
Yes.
pop up on
I've
YouTube.
I've I've
Anyway,
seen the
so
Shroud of Turin. I've been there
yeah.
and I saw like the expo of it.
Mm. So now
Yes.
apparently they were able to do a lot more scientific tests, and they can explain almost like this 3D image that comes out of it. And they're saying that like they cannot reproduce how that could happen in 3D.
Mhm.
And they're saying there's
Yes.
only some kind of supernatural light that exposed. Anyway, I can't explain. The guy does a way better job. But the
Yes.
point is, something supernatural happened with that shroud. Um, so I don't know. I think for a lot of doubters, go check out those YouTube videos, because I think it'll explain a lot of things.
And
Anyway,
also
so
I would also recommend the Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. So
absolutely,
they're like the
yes,
books and the movie. The movie is very, very good. I wanted because I have it in English, but I have to find the one with the Romanian subtitles. I was planning to show it to my dad as well. Yeah.
yeah, no, that's awesome. Anyway, so Diana, so I was curious, how did I don't even know how did we met? What were you doing in Chicago? So it sounds like some of the people that were serving with you. Do I know any of them? Were they sort of in our group?
The ones that first initially I came to Chicago to,
Yeah, yeah.
those you don't know them. You don't know because they were not in our
Okay,
group. They're like married couple with children.
okay.
So yeah, they were
I
like,
see. Okay, so they were not like in our immediate sort of group.
no, no. After
Mhm.
that, I try like to find like more youth and be involved with the youth. And I would go to the church on Ashland, in Chicago. So we're just like a
Yes,
few of
yes,
us. So then I started going to
yes.
Logos Youth. That's how I met some. I remember actually Lygia was the first girl kind of that welcomed me and invited me to go
Ligia
out for
Olar, right?
photography. Sorry?
Ligia Olario. Ligia
No,
Ligia
Ligia
Olario,
Candriano.
right?
No, Ligia
Oh, Ligia
Candriano.
Candriano. Okay, okay,
Yes,
okay. I didn't.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And then Emma, now Bayless, Emma Foster Wanzo,
Yes. Hmm.
the niece of my barak, she became my best friend there. That she actually really invested in me and mentored me. She just came from, is again, like the Lord is so amazing. She just had that time off. She was not working on anything because she just came from a mission trip from Moldova. She worked with the Girls of God in Moldova for 6 months. So she came back
Yeah.
to Chicago right when I moved there. So we were very good friends. We lived close to one another. So I remember she spent a lot of time uh, with me, just like mentoring me, men yeah, like mentoring me, and I was a new baby believer. Like I said, I didn't know a lot of things. So I'm, yeah, very thankful for her as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So that's how you got involved with sort of the Romanian evangelical circles there in Chicago. Okay. And
Yes,
then
and
what
then
happened?
obviously
Because
I went to the Pentecostal church, and then I met some of my best friends there as well. You know,
yeah.
so I I'm a very social butterfly, so I love people. So I got to know people very, very soon and get involved. And then with you guys in Michigan, just starting to go to Michigan as well and hang out with you guys.
Yep.
It was a blessed time, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. So that's how we kind of get to know each other. So during this time, with sort of your status here was sort of up in the air with not getting. But you were intending to go back. How did I? how did the
Initially,
sort of OM?
yeah, initially I was just planning just to stay for a couple of years just to make some money and go back to Romania and open up a business. Actually, what I wanted to do is back to Romania to open an orphanage, or it's called, it's like a foster care home. That's what I
Yeah.
wanted to do
Hmm.
with the money.
Really?
That was, yeah, that was my initial plan. Um, and then I just got through the motion and I ended up like staying here. Um, and when I started praying, as I said, like, Lord, what's the purpose for my life? Like, what do you want me to do? The Lord was very specific for me to leave everything and go into world missions. He was very specific about the ship ministry, to go on Logos Hope.
Huh.
Um, and it was a hard decision, but the Lord really spoke to me through. I still remember a sermon when the pastor said, do you love the gift or do you love the giver? Would you give up your gifts for your giver? America for me was my dream, the greatest gift of my life. Like, I could never imagine having the life that I lived. This was like already back in California. I was, I was having my Californian dream life. Everything was perfect, honestly. Like, um, I had the good life, good church, good friends, job. Like, I always had a job. I was not even one day without a job. God provided for me in every single detail of my life. So I really learned dependence on the Lord and on His provision. Um, so, hearing that sermon, I was like, Lord, I love you more than anything. It's like, yes, I'm gonna give up my dream for you. And it's so interesting. We can never outgive God. Like,
Yeah.
He's the giver, we cannot give him more than he already has given us. And I remember, so he mentioned about Logos Hope, and I said, okay, Lord, I'm gonna go there, but what's next? It's like, I cannot come back to the US. In Romania, I was gone already. I had almost 6 years since I left Romania. So it's like everybody
Yeah.
went on with their life. I don't see myself living in Romania anymore. Like, what's next? I could not see anything. It was like pitch black. I could
Yeah.
just see the
Yeah.
shape, and that's it. And I would just feel the Lord telling me, Diana, just trust me. And I don't know, it's interesting. Sometimes when the Lord speaks to us, it's just like in our spirit. Sometimes I will feel emotions like the Lord, like His emotions. And this time He was just smiling over me, like, Diana, just trust me. And it's so funny because if he would have told me exactly what is going to happen once I leave, I would have laughed. It's like in his face, I was like, Lord, that's impossible. Like, no way that's going to happen. That's a miracle. And yeah, that's what happened.
So,
Uh yeah.
Diana, before we give the audience sort of that preview of what happened next, so you were basically you're living sort of your best life in Chicago, right?
Then
Or had you moved to
California.
California? I think
I had 2 years in
then
California.
California. So you're
Yeah.
like, this is the dream. I love it here, and sort of something God put on your heart that He wants you to do ministry or go on a missions. Why
Mhm.
Logos Hope? How did that come about? Because you're in the States. Like, where did you get introduced to that, to where it get put on your heart?
So first time I heard about Logos Hope, it was a Logos Church. A brother, an English brother, Garrett Bolton is his name. He came to present the ship ministry uh, at at the church. Uh,
Can you tell us
Again,
about what the ship ministry? Because the people don't know what Logos
yes.
Hope is. So maybe
So
tell us what that
Logos
is.
Hope, yes, Logos Hope is a missionary ship that goes around the world to preach the gospel from port to port. They advertise, as the largest floating book fair in the world, sharing knowledge, help, and hope to all nations. So basically, they do ministry at different levels. So this ship goes from port to port, and the ministry is done in the port. Because people ask me, oh, do you minister to the crew members? Like, the crew members are the missionaries. Everybody on the ship is a missionary, from the captain, that probably you're going to learn about him as well, from the captain, engineers, chefs. Everybody is a missionary, and that's how we serve. We're all volunteers. We all need to fundraise to be there. And how people are getting in touch with the gospel, they come on board. They have a huge book fair where they have literature from all sorts of, there are all sorts of books, from cooking books, English books, economics, you name it. You also have Christian books, Christian literature, kids books, all sorts of books. So people come on board to visit, to see the book fair, to buy some books. They're very inexpensive, very affordable. So that's how they get in touch with the missionaries on board. And as they come to the book fair, then they go through the journey of life, which is the journey of the prodigal son. So everybody who comes on board hears the story of the prodigal son. Then you have the iCafe, where is a cafe place where people sit down, have ice cream, coffee, popcorn, cookies. And there are all these like missionaries there who are there to talk to people who visit the ship, to share their testimonies, or to do skits, or do praise and worship, or crafts for the kids. There's a kids corner. Actually, when I went with my kids on the ship last year, we did like the kids corner. So I prepared activities for my kids to do with the other kids that visited the ship. So I got them involved like that too. So
Wow.
that this is what happens on the ship. They also have events on board where people are invited, or even churches there. I mean, the ship ministry also wants to encourage the believers in that country, to share the gospel, to minister, through prayer. So it's also geared to the local churches to help them, but also, for evangelism. And we would have, like, we call them English cafes, especially if you're in non-English speaking countries. So in every country, the ministry looks a little bit different depending on the country's needs. So if you're a non-English speaking country, you would invite them, come practice your English, and we sit like at tables. But also, it's geared towards hearing testimonies. You have the drama team, to sharing different cultures. Like, God created us diverse, but there's beauty in diversity. Um, and honestly, it's so easy to share the gospel on board, because people come to you. They're coming to your home, and they ask you, like, how come you're here? And you're from all these they're from, when I was on board 10 years ago, we were from over 60 nations,
Yeah.
representing around 350 people on board from over 60 nations. And they just ask us, like, how come you guys live together? How come you don't have misunderstandings? And it's so easy. Well, we have the common goal to be Christ and to share the love of Christ. And some people would just say that once they enter the ship, they sense something different. There was something,
Yeah.
as I mentioned with the summer camp, with the Christian camp. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I say. Like, it was just something different about the ship, about the people serving. And they're just
Yeah.
curious and they want to hear, what is it? It's like, yeah, this is it. Christ is the one who makes the difference in our lives. And when they hear that we're not even paid to be there, that we need to pay to be there, it's like, why would you do that? Um, and then
So
it's
so
also
essentially this is a floating library, a floating
book fair.
camp, a f-
Yeah, it's a book fair.
right,
Yes,
a book fair, okay, but essentially with a ton of books. So this is like a
yes.
mini city floating from country to country,
Hmm.
obviously countries that you want to minister to. What
Yes.
was the focus of like what countries were focused? Like Africa? Was it no, it was Central America? Where were these ports?
So the ministry started in the 70s. And since then, it has been going. Since then, they changed. I think Logos Hope is the third ship. I think that they changed. Now they have another one. It's called Doulos Hope, a smaller one, a smaller vessel that can go through the rivers as well. Um, but it never stopped. It just goes from port to port. So every country, like the port areas of the countries are targeted. Like everybody needs the gospel.
Wow.
Like no matter the country, there's still people to be reached. And uh, what I wanted to mention, there are also missionaries who go onshore. So every day there are sent teams of missionaries onshore, and they do different projects. They work with orphans, evangelism. Um, they have like eyeglass ministry to test your eyes and give out glasses, shoes that grow, water filters. It just depends on the country. When
On the
I
country.
went in Thailand, for example, Thailand, that's the country that really touched my heart because we did a lot of we work with prostitutes. So we would go in the red light districts and just talk to them. I've never seen anything more heartbreaking in my life. They're prostitutes laying on a shore. We were in Pattaya, which is one of the most beautiful places um,
Yeah.
by the water. But Pattaya is known as the prostitution center, the mecca of prostitution. I feel like there are like
Wow.
miles and miles of poor prostitutes, like one after another. On one side were the prostitutes, on the other side were the bars. Um, so it was just like full of them, and we would just have to approach them. So that was very hard, but we did it just to speak truth to them, share about the love of Christ. It's interesting because we're so here in America, we're so used to the gospel. We're bombarded, like we do here, right, about Jesus, or we do know something. But it's so. I was just remembering. I was talking to my mom the other day. It's so different when you share the gospel with the person that never heard nothing in their lives. So I was in Thailand on the ship. So I started talking to a girl and she didn't know anything about it. So I start with creation. I have to start from the beginning. God created the world. God created people in his image. What was the plan for humanity? So I go step by step and I get to the point where, well, Jesus had to die on the cross for our sin. Like her face got just saddened, like she was so sad, like, wow, like he had to die. Like she almost started crying. And then I told her the good news. But after 3 days, he came back to life. He resurrected and he's alive right now. He's alive. And her face just lightened up and she started smiling and she was so happy. And I looked at her and I was like, this is the good news of the gospel. Like Jesus is
Yeah.
alive and he wants a personal relationship with you. He wants to change your life down here on earth and to give you eternal life forever. So that was just amazing to witness. And the girl accepted Christ. Um, and I still pray for her. I don't know. The Lord knows, what she's doing right now. I really hope that she walks with the Lord. And we can give out Bibles. So that's another great blessing. When we go to different countries, we change part of the literature in the language of the country. So I was able to give her a Thai Bible for her to read. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean it's truly amazing. The ship ministry, they're super organized. There's a team that goes in advance in every country, and they work with local churches, Christian organization, even media for people to know, like, hey, the ship is coming, with the
Yeah.
local officials, governors, like everybody knows about the ship when the ship goes. So everything
Wow.
is prepared and up to like
Wow.
to run.
That is absolutely amazing. So so you heard this gentleman in church, I assume for the first time, or had you heard about Logos
Yes,
Hope before?
that was the first time. I was not even at church. I didn't make it. I met with the youth after that. And one of my friends was like, oh my goodness, Diana, because he knew already what my passion was. And he was like, you have to listen to this guy because he shared about the ministry that I think fits you perfectly because I love people, sharing the gospel culture. I just love to interact with different kind of people. So he helped me get, back then it was on the DVD on a disc. So he got me the disc with the sermon. I listened to it and I emailed him. I emailed Garrett Bolton, and he replied to me, and he sent me all the info about OM and who to contact. And yeah, that's how I knew. And in the end, I even got to meet personally Garrett Bolton back on the ship 10 years ago and even last year. So the path still cross. It's a very important character in my life that God, the Lord used. So that's how I learned about it. But then it took me another 2 years of prayer and learning to hear from the Lord and really trust Him, because He asked me to walk out in faith. Like, this is what my plans are for you. You have to trust me that I'll take care of you, even you don't know how and you cannot see it. So yeah, I decided after 2 years, after I heard the first time mentioning about Logos Hope, I decided to, okay, I'll do it.